Ready? All right. Okay, counting down, 3, 2, and joining me now to talk more about opening weekend, the overall 2019 legislative priorities from the Senate's perspective is Republican Senator Damon Thayer. We appreciate your time and joining us for our In Focus Kentucky taping on the road here at the Capitol.
Always great to be with you. Thanks for coming to the Capitol.
We appreciate that. And for people that may not be aware of kind of what the 2019 General Assembly, the short session means, they hear the words on the air or newspapers, but can you break that down and from your perspective for viewers?
Sure. The short sessions have only been around for about 20 years when the Constitution was changed back then by a vote of the people. It used to be the General Assembly only met in even-numbered years for 60 days. And then 20 years ago, the Constitution was changed, and now we meet in odd-numbered years for 30 days in addition to the 60-day even-year session. So in the even years, we do the budget and the road plan. That's what we did back in 2018. And 2019, we just started our 30-day short session, and we come in for 4 days, and we get reorganized, elect leadership, go through our mandatory ethics training, people get their committee assignments, committee chairs are named, we start moving legislation, and then we take a 3-week recess as prescribed by the Constitution. We come back on February 5th and go consecutively till the end of March.
Well, let's talk about some of this legislation. Senate Bill 1 was introduced with dealing with school safety, and what does that entail, but also what are you hoping to accomplish with that particular bill?
Senate Bill 1 is the school safety bill, and it is a direct result of the tragic shooting that occurred a year ago in Marshall County in West Kentucky. And we wanted to take a contemplative approach to the problem, and we appointed a bipartisan traveling working group led by Senator Max Wise and Majority Leader Bam Carney, both from Taylor County, traveled around the state gathering opinion on various ways to secure our schools. And Senator Wise filed that bill yesterday. It is the top priority this session, and it will deal with basically 3 aspects of school safety: hardening the targets, making the school safer and harder for an active shooter to access. It will also deal with mental health counseling with recommendations there, and it will also deal with training for more school resource officers in our schools.
Now, there is a lot of support, obviously, for the particular bill, but there's always the question about funding and how can you allocate dollars to that. Is that something that's going to be attached, you think, in this particular conversation, or is it 2020 discussion?
Yeah, we hope to pass the framework in Senate Bill 1 this year, and once we get a better handle on the cost related to that, we'll deal with that in the budget next year. I don't see much enthusiasm for opening up the budget here in the off year of the short session. It requires a 3/5 supermajority to deal with taxes and spending in a short session. So I think we'll try to get the framework passed. A lot of it can be implemented by the school districts, and then any of the cost drivers we'll deal with in the budget next year.
And share with us about that supermajority. How will that impact kind of some of the, excuse me, the legislation that you all have, which you're hoping to introduce and potentially get into law?
Well, when the Constitution was changed 20 years ago, the writers of the constitutional amendment said that in order to raise any taxes or deal with any tax bills or appropriations, you had to have a 3/5 supermajority, which is 23 votes out of 38 in the Senate and 60 out of 100 in the House of Representatives. And that was a taxpayer protection. It makes it harder to raise taxes, which is good, and it also means that you have to have a higher threshold in order to change the budget, which is good, because I'm really not a strong proponent unless there's a real emergent reason for opening up the budget. I'd rather deal with it during the longer 60-day session as we prepare the 2-year spending plan that goes into a place in July of even-numbered years.
And in our last few moments, any other top priority items that you want to be able to get out there before the session ends?
Well, pension reform continues to be really the most important thing that we have to do that affects all Kentuckians. And after the unfortunate decision by the Supreme Court, which I disagree with, by the way, we have to start from scratch. And we're still putting together our plan, but I predict there will be significant time spent on teachers' pension reform in order to protect taxpayers and protect retirees and future retirees in our teachers' retirement system. So that really sort of is an overlay to the entire session, because until we can pass a bill that's signed into law by the governor that the Supreme Court won't overrule, this problem still exists, and we've got to figure out a way to stop the digging and start filling the dirt back in the hole on these pension systems. And it doesn't just require money, it requires structural reforms, and so we're going to continue to take a hard look at those as well.
Well, Senator Thayer, we appreciate your time and for joining us, and we'll continue to see the progress that's being made.
Thank you for the time and attention that you put on the People's House here in the General Assembly.
You bet.